first of all, there's no such thing as a typical response from a person living with dementia. There are people like anywhere else, there's a variety of responses. But I get some interesting ones. I mean, there's one that comes to mind. Let's call it Veronica. When I go to the group, she's in a wheelchair. She's got a very severe frown and quite fierce eyes. And the staff generally back off from her because she hasn't got language and she's quite formidable in her own way. And when I start singing a greeting song, which is what I normally introduce, using people's names and singing hello, she looks blank. So I approach her very close up. Now the reason for going close up is manifold. First of all, maybe she's got hearing problems. Secondly, maybe she's got visual impairment. She needs to see me. She can't make me out unless I come close. But most importantly, by coming close, you're making it clear that you're making eye contact, and when you use their name, they register that you're connecting with them. You're recognizing something here. And so I remember singing Hello Veronica, the way I would normally sing Hello Veronica or whatever, and her response was to start to sing in a very quite theatrical way. She started singing, oh, 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 ah, la, la, la. So what I did is I responded in like ways. I gave the phrase she gave. If it was a phrase like, hala, I would say, hello, hello, la. And then she started to make all kinds of facial expressions as if she was maybe an operatic character on stage, maybe in a comic opera, but certainly in a theatrical, characterful way. Her face would move with the music and she would go, whoa, la, 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 and I was doing the same. And it was like a dialogue between us. And then when I sensed that she had this way of communicating through music, this unique way, which I love, because music should be creative, unique, it shouldn't be routine and rote. I bring the whole group in and I turn to the whole group and I suggest, let's sing hello like a Veronica. And they're shy, but they're smiling. And I'm giving Veronica the experience that what you're doing is part of a musical experience shared by others. It's not just you and me. We are making music together. And from then on, I always had this theatrical way of engaging with her, which was delightful. It became our way of understanding each other. And each time I saw her, until she died, we would do that. Oh, definitely. I mean, on the whole, people need time to adjust to a new activity like this when a strange man comes in and wants them to explore singing and dancing and playing instruments. But there's a case like, for example, of, let's call her Alice, who, when I got to the group, she was already singing. She sang throughout the day, to the annoyance of some of the other people. She would sing nursery rhymes. She was in her second childhood, you could say. And she would be completely unaffected by other people's irritation. And I think singing gave her a feeling of control. And I really relate to that. But not everybody did. And sometimes, in fact, her need to control would affect other people. And it was nice that in a group there was an appropriate context in which she didn't need to feel the need to control others, and where her voice and singing was accepted and essential to the conviviality of the whole experience. What was important was that this group singing activity gave her a context in which her singing impulses were appropriate, and she had an audience, and she was accepted in that time and space. So maybe that was a containing factor as well, to knowing that there's a time in the week when it's the right time for this, and that there's a difference between that appropriate coming together in order to do something versus doing it randomly all the time. when I introduced percussion instruments, she wanted the big drum. She said, I want the big drum. And I thought, she's going to be very dominant. But she wasn't. She played it appropriately, modestly even, I would say. And when I praised her for the fact that she was playing well in relation to the music, she was obviously very pleased with herself for that. And she would always say at the end, that was wonderful. My experience of men living with dementia is not that different from men on the whole that I've experienced in groups. That they tend to be a little more reluctant to dance and sing than women. In some cases, they're quite self-conscious about what's expected of them in the way of performance. And in other cases, they actually love it and love to sing and dance. But I could tell you about one guy, for example, let's call him Stanley, who was very withdrawn in the sense that he would spend his day in his room watching videos, actually musicals. He did love music. My Fair Lady and The Sound of Music. He would repeatedly watch these movies. And when I went to see him, I found out what he said to me. I'm waiting to hear Beethoven on the radio. So I said, I love Beethoven. I'm a big fan. And he started to use this expression, Beethoven forever. And I thought, well, there's our link. He would only come to the group if somebody promised to bring him back. And those were the only two things I ever heard him say, is Beethoven forever and who is going to bring me back? I remember in the group I gave him a drum and he liked to just hold the beat like a conductor, the first beat of the bar, boom, boom. And so when we sang, I would get us to sing something like the Ode to Joy, la 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 la, and then he would play the drum just boom, boom, with a very solemn, straight face. I would say afterwards, did you enjoy that? And he would just nod. Sometimes he would pull a grin, ironic, satirical, sardonic, to show that he didn't want to be bossed. He didn't want to be forced to do anything. And then in the last part of his life, he withdrew completely to his room and didn't want to come anymore before he died. Gosh, yes, there was this one guy. When I approached him and offered to sing with him, he not only grimaced at me and raised his fists, but he also told me to F off. And I just simply mirrored what he was doing. I raised my fists back and I came at him as if ready to fight with him. And he laughed. It stole his thunder. And from then on, he relaxed. And in fact, at the end of the session, he said, that was wonderful. Unfortunately, that didn't cure him. He became repeatedly aggressive in the ward, and in fact, it wasn't suitable for him to attend my group anymore. There's another guy who was quite aggressive in a different way. He would sing very loudly, he had a very powerful voice, and he would mock me, show signs of frustration with me, which were not called for. And I wasn't fazed by those, I ignored that. And when he got very loud, he would, for example, hold a note longer and louder than anyone else. I would join him and I would match him and even outdo him. And when he got very active, I would sometimes sing in harmony with him, so it turned it into a baritone bass duet, which the other people in the group would clap and applaud. So I think sometimes you can solve a problem by matching like with like in a musical way. Not verbally, just through the music, and let the music do the work.